Mars didn't belong to anyone legally. That was the beautiful, terrible thing about it. When the corporate colonies had failed, when Mars Core Industries and the Jung-Woo Consortium and Helios Energy had all abandoned their operations in the face of unprofitability, Mars was left to the people who had come there not for profit, but for love. For science. For the dream of a world that could be home. Dr. Elena Volkov stood in what had once been Mars Core's central hub, now transformed into the Parliament of Mars. 237 people from 17 nations gathered to decide the future of the only world humans had truly colonized beyond Earth. Outside, 200,000 more lived in domes and burrows, tunnels and habitats they'd built themselves. The problem was that Earth wanted Mars back. The United Nations spacefaring mandate was clear. All extraplanetary settlements remained under UN jurisdiction. When the corporations abandoned Mars, Earth expected the colonists to evacuate. When they refused, Earth sent the recovery fleet to retrieve valuable assets and reclaim the world for humanity. The battleships took orbit 7 days ago. Earth's military responding to what politicians called the Martian insurrection. "We have 3 options," General Webb was saying. His grandson, Marcus Webb Jr., following in his grandfather's footsteps. "First, we surrender. Evacuate, return to Earth, abandon everything we've built. Second, we fight. Attempt to defend against orbital bombardment with our ground-based systems. That fails within hours. Third, we do something unprecedented." "Which is?" asked Governor Cho, representing the Asian collective's interests. Webb pulled up a schematic. "We build something Earth won't expect. We build a world that survives without permission." The next 72 hours were chaos and coordination. Every person in every colony was brought into the effort. Maria, a geologist, worked with engineers to excavate deeper subsurface cities. Jorge, a botanist, oversaw the expansion of underground farms and biogenic systems. Rachel, a nuclear technician, managed the power distribution of every geothermal plant on the planet. They worked not with weapons but with infrastructure. Not with military strategy, but with transformation. From orbit, the Earth fleet watched Mars become something new. The domes disappeared, not destroyed, but systematically relocated underground. The surface settlements vanished. The landing zones were left empty. Every settlement, every facility, every human being on Mars was absorbed into a network of underground cities connected by tunnels and rapid transit systems. A civilization that had learned to live beneath the surface, that had become part of the Martian crust itself. General Webb transmitted a message to the Earth fleet. "Mars is no longer in orbit above you. Mars is no longer in any location that your weapons can reach." Admiral Chen, commanding the recovery fleet, was baffled. "What does that mean? Mars is a planet. It hasn't moved." "They're not evacuating," his tactical officer said quietly. "They're hiding, not hiding exactly. They're transforming their infrastructure to be effectively immune to orbital bombardment." Chen studied the data as it came in. The surface was now essentially barren, completely devoid of structures. All Martian infrastructure had gone underground. Without surface targets, orbital weapons were nearly useless. A bombardment would just hammer empty desert. He could, technically, still destroy them, glass the entire planet, sterilize it completely. But that would require reporting to Earth that he'd committed genocide against human civilians rather than recovering assets. Moreover, reports were coming in. Smaller ships had landed. Supplies had been imported. The Martian colonists weren't surrendering. They were consolidating. Within a week, the data suggested that Mars wasn't just defending itself, it was becoming self-sufficient. Independent. A world that could survive cut off from Earth indefinitely. Elena's message went out to the fleet, the UN, and to Earth itself. "I am Elena Volkov, elected representative of the Martian Parliament. Humans came to Mars not to escape Earth, but to expand our species. For 200 years, we have built this world with our hands and our hope. This is not an insurrection. This is an expansion of human civilization to a new world. We are not separatists, we are homesteaders. This colony is now a sovereign nation, the Free Mars Collective, under the doctrine of independent habitation and the right to self-determination. Arrest her, Admiral Chen transmitted to Earth. We'll storm those tunnels if necessary. Sir, his communications officer said carefully, we've received word. The Martian underground network contains over 200,000 civilians, including the children of families that have lived here for 4 generations. Storming those tunnels would mean hand-to-hand combat in conditions we don't understand, against an enemy that's had 70 years to prepare the terrain. Chen understood what he was saying. This would be genocide, and it would be recorded. Every death, every child, every civilian, broadcast to Earth by the very colonists they were trying to suppress. He understood something else. The age of simple imperialism was over. The colonists had transformed Mars from a colony into something else entirely. A world, a home, a civilization. He sent a message to Elena. Stand down your defense systems, and the fleet will withdraw without orbital bombardment. If you escalate, we will reduce your colony to dust. Elena's response was faster than he'd expected. We don't need defense systems. We are the defense system now. Every person in every tunnel, every technician managing every system, every child who's grown up breathing Martian air, all of us. We were never soldiers. We were never revolutionaries. We were always just humans trying to build a world. But it turns out, that's the most powerful thing Mars has ever seen. The fleet withdrew. Not because they were defeated militarily, but because they'd encountered something their weapons couldn't destroy. A civilization that had learned to be part of its world rather than merely occupying it. 200,000 humans who understood that survival on Mars meant becoming Martian, and that becoming Martian meant being undefeatable. 6 months later, the UN recognized the Free Mars Collective as an independent nation-state. Trade agreements were established. Immigration agreements were negotiated. Earth began to send new colonists not to recover assets, but to build a future. Elena stood in the deep chambers beneath the surface of Mars, in the heart of a city that Earth's weapons would never have found. She thought about what revolution really meant, not violence or overthrow, but transformation. The willingness to become something new, something adapted, something that couldn't be conquered because it had learned to be part of the land itself. Mars had won its freedom not through war, but through migration. Not through weapons, but through the simple, powerful act of choosing to stay. And that, Elena understood, was the most human victory of all.